Hi there Booktube, and welcome to a new video. This is going to be a tag video, and it is the Booktube Booker book tag, bit of a mouthful, which was originally started by David at the Poptimist, although I watched Britta Bowler's version, and she's quite rightly tagged everyone because this is a bit like Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, his channel, where he wanted to find out the top 10 all-time books of all booktubers, and he's sort of compiling a spreadsheet for that. Well, this is similar in that the Poptimist has a poll going for everyone, whether you're a booktuber or not, which I'll put the link in below for you to put in your answers to these questions. So again, he can compile Booktube's verdict. I think the feeling was that most of the book prizes this year have had really disappointing long lists, let alone short lists, let alone winners. So David Poptimist has sort of thrown it open to us booktubers for our sort of versions of a notional prize, literary prize. So on we go. So the favourite, I ought to say before I do this, it's a really cold, wet, miserable day in London. And as you regular viewers of my channel know, my books are all outside in the shed, and I'm not going outside to go and get them for this tag. This is an instant response tag. I've just watched Britta's, so I haven't had time to prepare this. So of all the books that I go on to talk about, I've only actually got one here because I finished it recently. And most of the books I'm going to talk about also have dedicated videos to them, and I'll post the links there rather than talk at length. So it'll be quite a quick, hopefully, video, this one. Okay, so question one, favourite fiction book of the year. Well, this is one where I do actually cross over with the official book prizes, because it's Milkman by Anna Burns, which I've just read last week and posted a long video about it, about 20 minutes long video, which I'll post a link to. I just thought this was a remarkable achievement. It sort of, without ever sort of explicitly talking about what were called the Troubles in Northern Ireland from the sort of late 60s onwards, Anna Burns has created that world of sectarian divide simply through the language she uses, because it's a prescribed language. There's words you cannot use because it sort of indicates allegiance to the other side or to the state forces. And I just thought this was a tremendous book. And I've read other books that will get into my top 10 and may displace this at the top of my top 10 chart, but they weren't published this year. This was published this year and is on the Booker shortlist, and I really hope it wins. Okay. Question two, favourite non-fiction book of the year. Well, I think I've probably only read one that was published this year. I've read about 8 non-fiction books this year, which is quite a lot for me. But the only one that was published this year was by Galen Strawson, called Things That Bother Me. And it's a sort of philosophical inquiry about being, and it was recommended to me both by Neil Griffiths and by Mitchell Axler. And I'm very grateful they did, because it was a tremendous read. And I included it in one of my wrap-up videos, so I'll try and find the link for that one. Prompt 3, favourite debut novel of the year. Well, this is The Early King and the Kid in Yellow by Danny Denton, an Irish writer, which had many sort of things going against it in terms of tempting me, in that it was a terrible cover. It looks like a YA book. It's post-apocalyptic, and I don't know about you, but I'm a bit tired by that trope. But actually, it's a fantastic book. It is set in an island that is just totally sort of saturated by rain, by sort of pollution that's welled up from sort of toxic sort of fluids that have welled up from under the ground. And it's about sort of how the gangsters have sort of moved in to supply, you know, the food and other things that can no longer be grown in Ireland. And one of their numbers, called the Kid in Yellow, falls in love with the gang leader's daughter and makes her pregnant. But what's so fantastic about this book is the language. It's such a rich, poetic Irish version of English, and it was, again, just all contained in the language for me. It's not political in the sense that Milkman is political, but it was just lovely just to sit back and just sort of luxuriate in this wonderful lyrical poetic language, and it was quite a good story too. Prompt 4, favourite poetry or short story collection. Well, I have to hold my hand up. I haven't read a single poetry collection this year. So I've had to go down the route of short stories. And I started the year on a bit of a downer about short stories. But one has come along recently that has rescued that. And that is the inimitable Ben Marcus, Notes from the Fog. And yes, I've got a dedicated video. In fact, it's my last published, no, my penultimate published video. Milkman was my last video. So I shall post the link to that. But Ben Marcus does what Ben Marcus does best. And that's just takes your mind where no other writer in serious literary fiction does. Prompt 5, favourite work in translation. Well, this is Yaroslav Kulvar's The Spaceman of Bohemia, which I read at the start of the year, and it was a fantastic book about sort of a post-communist Czechoslovakia and a search and a struggle for identity and for heroes. And it's a book about, if you're on the wrong side in history. In this case, it's a child, so it's not really anything he's done, but because his parents were involved in the pro-communist regime, and then the Velvet Revolution sweeps that from power, and all of a sudden he's on the wrong side of history, even though he's only a child. It's a fantastic book. I've got a dedicated video to it. It's obviously translated from the Czech, and I'm really looking forward to see what his next book is. Prompt 6, favourite comic or comic series or graphic novel. I'm afraid I haven't got any because I haven't read any this year. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not, I never read them. I've actually written 2 myself, and so if there's any sort of illustrator out there who wants to collaborate on 2 completed scripts, I'm up for it. So I'm not against the genre, it's just one I don't read a lot. And a lot of the fuss about Sabrina being on the Booker list as a graphic novel, and a lot of the criticism is, well, graphic novels, it's about the visual image and they're not very literary. Words don't have quite as high value. Well, I can attest that the ones I've written, because I pride myself as a literary writer who uses language forensically, mine are. So it is possible, but you'll never know unless someone can draw them up for me. Okay. Prompt 7, favourite book cover. Well, I'm afraid this again going to be some shameless self-promotion, because I'm not, I don't care about book covers that much, except if they're mine. So this is my book, 3 Dreams of the Kirji, which made it onto the Not to the Booker shortlist. And I think you'll agree it's a rather beautiful cover designed by the artist Michael Lacey. If you Google him, you'll see, he's a proper artist who has exhibitions and portfolios and stuff. So go and check him out. And I think this is a rather lovely cover, of which I had no input into. This was all Michael's own work, based on a few brief I gave him about what the novel was, and I think he did a tremendous job. Prompt 8, favourite author, considering works, social media, interviews and articles. Well, I assume this doesn't, it can't be only this year, because authors have bodies of work across the years. So first of all, there's the aforementioned Ben Marcus, who is my favourite contemporary author. Although he seems to be going through a bit of a transition in terms of his style, and I'm interested to see where that ends up, because it's come through, his last 2 books have both been collections of short stories. I want to see where he goes with his next novel. He hasn't had a novel for, I don't know, about 4 years or something. But the other person, and this sort of answers the rest of it, social media, interviews and articles, Jarek Kobek, who wrote a book, amongst others, called I Hate the Internet, and isn't on social, well, he's certainly not on Twitter, and it's a brilliant book, a brilliant satire of all of that, and I think he's just the most clued in person about all of modern life in terms of the media output and how we live our lives and consume our lives. And he's got a new book out next year, which I think is sort of about the sort of Trump and Me Too and all of that. So he's a fantastic satirist. So although technically he's not on sort of social media in an overt way, so it's kind of hard to feed that in, he's kind of my favourite author because he's the best sort of contemporary critic who writes fiction. And I know that's a lot of people aren't interested in that or disqualify that from sort of genuine literature, but for me, Kobek is definitely up there. 9, favourite Booktube video. Well, Britta mentioned quite rightly that the tag that Sean the Bookmaniac did for Eric Carl Anderson's 40th birthday, which is a brilliant idea and a genius idea. But go and watch Britta's version of it, of her sort of extolling the tag. I don't feel I need to add anything to that. So I'm going to go a slightly different way, and I'm going to offer Dane Reed's punk rock tag, where he had a series of 10 or 12 questions, all based around punk rock classic tunes and book links taken from there. But the thing was, Dane also punked up for it. Sort of eyeliner and sort of leather and stuff. Looked great. So that's my favourite Booktube video, and inspired me to do my own, although I didn't dress up for it. And finally, penultimately, favourite new, to you at least, Booktuber. Well, I'm not sure what the definition of new is, because if it's in terms of discovered in 2018, then that's most of the people I follow, because I only really discovered Booktube around the start of this year. So I'm going to go Beth Chats Books, who I've been following, for at least 6 months. So you may feel that's not new, but I just really like her channel. I like her presentation. I like her content, and I think we have quite similar taste in books. Other than she will reread Harry Potter, because she grew up with Harry Potter, which of course I totally understand that link to one's childhood. That was not an option for me. So other than Harry Potter, I think we have quite similar book tastes. And the final one is who do you tag? And as with Britta, I'm going to tag everyone, because we want everyone to contribute their vote so we can sort of crown a champion in each of these categories. Okay, thanks very much. Till next time.